My name's Andy Russell. This is Thushan, Amarasiriwardena. Don't even try the last part. We're LaunchPad Toys. Warren led off with a question about heart and soul. When I was 8 years old, I saw the movie Big and decided I wanted to be a toy designer, and that's what kind of brought me here. LaunchPad Toys, we're building what we're calling the Adobe Creative Suite for kids. We're very concerned about this problem, which is the de-emphasis of creative education in and out of schools. And our big idea is to build a suite of digital creative tools that enable kids to create and learn and share their ideas through play. Thushan and myself as kids, we really liked playing with toys. And when we look back on it as adults, we could see that play process was really pivotal in our creative development. But we played with Legos, we played with constructs, we played with Play-Doh, we played with erector sets, anything we could get our hands on to build content, and it was wonderful. But looking back on it, it was also a little frustrating because you couldn't capture everything that you saw through play. And you would build these wonderfully elaborate worlds in your head that had these storylines and characters and settings that would put Michael Bay to shame. And yet you could never really get them out because your parents would be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" You'd be like, "And this happened, and this happened," and there'd be no structure to it. And there was no way to kind of capture the visual nature of it. And so that was a little frustrating. And there was no way to kind of share it with the rest of the world, and that was a little frustrating too. So Thushan and I talked about this all these years later, and we decided that we wanted to bridge that gap between informal learning and formal learning. And by that I mean that kids create these imaginary worlds through play at ages 4 and 5 and 6, but it's not until like 10 and 11 that there are tools that really are appropriate for them to capture that, tools like iMovie and Flash and Scratch. And we learned that through school, of course, that a lot of what Warren was talking about this morning, that Vygotsky and Piaget and Papert would tell us that this creation process, and more specifically the debugging loop that you go through when you model your ideas and you make your ideas visual, and then you put them out there for social feedback, and then you iterate through this process. This is, as educators, one of the best things that we can do for kids, and some of the most important tools that we can create. So we got really excited about this, and we went out and built a storytelling and animation tool called ToonTastic. ToonTastic launched in January, about 100 days ago, and we just passed a really cool milestone for us of 100,000 cartoons created. Out across the world, kids are creating 1,000 cartoons every single day using the tool. So with that, I'm going to step aside and let Thushan show you the app in action.
So, this is ToonTastic in action. All right, let's... So we're going to create a cartoon. Head down here and hit the new cartoon button. And this is where we start teaching kids about the story arc. Just like Andy said, stories aren't then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, but they'll rise and fall of emotion. Draped along these story events like the setup, the conflict, the challenge, the climax, and the resolution. And we try to give kids a story starter. So we're going to go with the setup, introduce the characters and story setting down here, and I'm going to hit the paintbrush, and we're going to go in and make our first scene. So we can go through and find a background for our cartoon. Anyone see anything of interest that they want to? Dragons. Well, here, let's go. I hate Dragon's Guild. I'm going to go to the castle gate, and we're going to have a dragon over there. And then we're going to go onwards to characters. And this is where we pick our characters. And we just simply tap it from the toy box. I'm going to get the dragon. Where are you? Here. And of course we need a knight. And let's get a robot in here too. So with these characters, you can scale, you can rotate them, and you can move individual limbs. What we try to do is, take paper puppets, Legos, and action figures, and just digitize them. They can go in different directions, so I can make the knight walk to the left or to the right. Other cool thing is, if I wanted to, I could color him and paint by number. And let's make him the Red Knight. And we'll get a character in here as well that we've drawn. And I'm going to make a sun. Yeah, I'm drawing with my finger. Sun rays. Now, if you notice with the characters that come stock with the app, we try to go for this paper cutout aesthetic. And what's happening right now is we are doing the paper cutout style for the characters that kids make. So whatever they draw fits in the world and realm of the regular ToonTastic characters. So we've got our sun. He's going to be off in the sky. We've got the dragon over here, the knight defending, and robot in the castle. And Andy, I'm going to be the dragon, and you be the robot and the prince, and I'll be the sun. Okay. Ready?
Help me.
My own app.
Help me get out of the castle.
There's a knight in the way. I can't really help you out.
Oh, I should get down, but I don't have any hair to let down like Rapunzel.
Why don't you just jump on a ride on the sun?
Thanks, son. Really appreciate it. You did me a solid.
And we'll hit done, and we'll watch that animation back now.
It was.
So creating a cartoon is just as easy as playing, just how you would do in the real world. So we've made our first scene. It's pretty cool. We've saved the robot, and we're going to move on to music. And this is where we add a background song for this scene. And we do this not through selecting a track, but selecting an emotion. So this was a fairly happy scene, so I'm going to go with happy. And we can go with that. But let's make it a little more exciting. We're going to pump up the emotional energy of this scene from mild up to medium. Now it's joyous. Or we can go all the way up a stack. And so we can go across all of these emotions. We could go with terrified and bring it down a notch to afraid or to nervous. So we're using these 6 core emotions. Happiness, surprise, frustration, sadness, nervousness, each with its own level of mild, medium, and spicy. And as the kid changes the level of emotional intensity, the story reflects that change. So the climax, which is a really high intensity scene, high up there. And the setup, which is where everything gets started, is sort of low. So now that we're done with that first scene, we go back to the story arc. And this is where we could jump into another scene or reorder things. Or once we're done, we hit done and title it. So and we select a merit badge, and this part works with our site called ToonTube. Unfortunately, because this device is not connected to the internet, we can't share it. But you can upload your cartoon up to our site, ToonTube, just like YouTube, and you can share it with friends and family around the world. And that's it in the app.
So here you can see here a screenshot of ToonTube in the lower right-hand corner. As Thushan said, it plays a little bit like YouTube, but all cartoons and a little bit safer, and we can control the content a little bit better. So that was our demo. One of the questions we were posed with for this talk was, how did you get here? And I think an important place to start is actually how we didn't get here, which is following the model of a big studio. A traditional company like EA might take a classic brand like John Madden Football and add some classic gameplay, throw a lot of developers at it through economies of scale, and then throw in a little bit of advertising, or at least have it trickle down from their consoles to really drive purchase and acquisition. At LaunchPad, we don't have any heritage brands, and we're not really that interested in classic gameplay. We're not quite sure how to do the economies of scale, and we spend $0 on advertising. Instead, we focus on play patterns, which we believe have been around since the dawn of time. We want to digitize those, create new experiences, and we focus on design as a core tenet of our company. Again, we're still working on the economies of scale part, but instead of advertising, we look to parent pride. So, with that in mind, a little more elaborate. Play patterns. They've been around for the dawn of time, and the toys that kind of drive them are really exciting in our minds. We think that video games represent a small fraction of the total play opportunity. When you look at the toy market, you see things that really haven't been digitized, like Play-Doh and erector sets and Lincoln Logs. And so we're really excited about bringing those to life in new formats and reimagining those kind of classic play patterns. And empowering kids to create content that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, and share those with other kids around the world. We think in terms of digital play. Video games have been around for quite some time, and most of them are really focused on entertainment. And they're defined, and they're linear, and they're about achievement. And we think digital play is a whole new opportunity, and we contrast that with empowerment instead of entertainment, and open-ended instead of defined, and imaginative instead of linear. And we like to think about intergenerational play. We believe that instead of digitizing and making talking Barneys and putting them in charge of educating our kids, that we should be building tools that parents and children can play with together. And with mobile devices and multi-touch devices, that all of a sudden becomes very viable. It takes the kids out of the upstairs office or study or computer room and puts them in the kitchen or the living room with the parents. And so instead of having talking characters on screen that walk you through the whole process, we instead create parent guides and help screens that Thushan will show you in a little bit that educate the parents as to what kind of questions they should be prompting their children and how they should be kind of guiding their kids through the experience. And we think that this is really valuable to get us beyond these kinds of environments, very insular, very screen-focused kids at little mini workstations, which we feel is a little uncomfortable.
So, about a year and a half ago, Andy called me up. I was sleeping on my parents' couch after traveling, and he says, "You want to move to a different couch and come out here and work on this idea?" At Stanford, Andy had made this version of ToonTastic for a 42-inch touchscreen TV, and an investor had come up to him and said, "Let's do something with this." But there really weren't any 42-inch touchscreen TVs at home. So he said, when they make the bigger iPhone, let's talk. And when it came out, that's when we hit the ground running. And so one of the things that we did was shift it from a huge screen down to the iPad. And along the way, we worked with kids. Well, not along the way. Every step of the way, we worked with kids. And we had this great resource called Museum. It's a children's museum, actually right next door to where we're working out of. And one of the greatest things about working at a kids museum is that you never have the same user twice. So you pop it in front of them, and you're not going to see them next time, and you pop it in front of another user the next weekend. So you get this really fresh experiences every time you test the device, or test the app. And so we started out with paper prototypes, and that was one of our first mistakes, actually, because we had these ideas in mind, and we put it in front of kids, and it worked on paper. But once we started making it into actually on the device, we started seeing that things weren't working out exactly. One of the things that I like talking about is the record button on ToonTastic. When we started out, as 29-year-olds, we were thinking, we've used VCRs before. The idea of a record, stop, and play button is a concept everyone knows, right? So we went with, if you can see on the bottom right, a play, stop, and pause button for the animation screen. And we put it in front of kids, and they didn't know what to do. And actually, this was at Maker Faire last year, and I was back home, and Andy called me and said, "Kids aren't getting it," and I'm like, "Yeah, let's why don't we just make the buttons bigger, because that's the best solution for any UI problem." So made the buttons a little bigger, and still no traction. And that's when we started thinking we need to really rethink it. What are kids these days thinking when they start and stop things? Well, start and stop. A go button over here and a stop button. And kids were starting to get what they were supposed to do. There was this color that they were drawn to, but this is the main thing that we were trying to get the kids to do, and yet we were putting it to the bottom left of the screen, off to the side, when it really should have been front and center. So we went to this huge button, start. Kids got it immediately, and we shifted it to this. And then along the way, if you notice, one of the things we did along the way was try to get rid of as many UI elements at any given point, so that only the things that they would ever need were on screen. So when you hit start animation, yeah, you might want to go back to characters, but once it's in animation mode, the only thing you really want to do is move your characters around or hit stop. And so that's the only button that's on screen. So once you hit stop, you go back to the main screen. Another major design change we made was playing off of this one thing at a time. Was initially we had this sort of breadcrumb style of story, cartoon, music, next, where you could easily jump between modes. But there's really no need to. This is like a picture frame where there's only one picture, and you only need to be able to do one thing at a time. So we shifted to that style of being able to go back and forward and only being on one screen at a time, as you can see. So that's that. And Andy, you want to talk about
Yeah, sure. So this is going back to the idea of intergenerational play, and really encouraging for that sort of play. One of the things that we've done is we've created a storytelling guide. We call it a parent and teacher guide, and it's posted on our website. It's posted on our online teacher wiki, which we support teachers using the software in the classroom. And it's actually in the app itself. So you can pull it up, and it'll walk parents and teachers through each of the pages and what the kids should be doing on each of the pages. And we'll offer sort of like to-dos on this screen, as well as story starter questions. So, what does your story arc look like? And what turned the emotion of the story in this scene? And then throughout the app itself, we have a little question mark. You can see it. I wish I had my laser pointer. You can see it in the upper right there. There's a little question mark on each of the pages, and that's for the parent. If a child ever gets stuck, they can step in. Fantastic, thanks. See, like PowerPoint. Yeah. They can step in, hit that question mark, and a couple of help screens will come up. And we wanted to. The thinking behind this was that we wanted to differentiate between the child's guide and then help for the parents. We wanted to get all of the narration, all of the sort of overhead out of the way for the kids, so they can go through as quickly as possible, and they don't have talking characters popping up at them telling them what to do every single time. But then we wanted to provide a resource for the parent to step in and be able to guide the child through the experience for that first time or second time or third time through.
It's cool when you watch cartoons that have been uploaded, the first cartoon made by the kid, you can hear the parent in the background. But, second or third one that gets uploaded, it's purely the kid.
And then going back to our last sort of divergence from the traditional model, I mentioned earlier that we don't spend any money on advertising because we don't have any money. But one of the things we do rely on is parent pride. And in constructionist learning tools, you have this amazing end product of what the child creates. And we live in an age with Facebook and Twitter and social media tools that are basically the equivalent of a giant digital refrigerator door. And so we bake everything into the app that we can, that enables the parent and the child to share their content with as many people as they can, and forward it on, and the hope that each of those cartoons itself goes viral, and in fact, hopefully our software goes with it. So that's a major emphasis for us moving forward. Yeah. Well, they're very different. And my understanding, and I don't want to show anybody up or anything like that, but my understanding is that constructivism is the theory developed by Piaget and his followers that talks about the learning process that the user or child or the parent or anybody who's learning goes through. Constructionism is a branch of that developed by Papert in the late 70s, early 80s at the Media Lab. That's talked specifically about the theories and frameworks that go into developing digital learning tools that to address constructivism.
Like the Lutherans in the
A little bit. So I say constructionist versus constructivist, but same theoretical framework, technicality. But others can correct me. So with that in mind, we wanted to cut a little short to open the door for questions, but also to give a little time to show one of our favorite cartoons. This was developed by a boy named Noah, and Noah lives in Massachusetts. And this was uploaded to our ToonTube site the first day that the app went live. And as Thushan mentioned earlier, it was initially designed as a museum exhibit for a museum in San Francisco when I was in grad school for 10 years old and up. And as we designed throughout the whole process, one of the biggest challenges we had was how young can you get it? Because we really felt that the market was significantly larger for the younger kids. And we didn't know. No one had really, Scratch is really good starting at like 10 or 11. There are a lot of these other tools out there, but there haven't been a lot of folks who have been able to get it down to like 4 or 5. And Thushan and I were sitting around the first day watching all the cartoons come in. It was like Saturday morning cartoons. And this one came in. It was the second cartoon ever uploaded, and it was a eureka, like high five moment.
The witch came in the princess's castle and her said, Now I'm gonna take you, princess, and now I'm gonna put you in my witch's jail. But the witch didn't see the prince hiding in the doorway. The prince came to scare the witch.
A lot of scaring.
The witch captured the princess, and the dragon is coming to eat her. And the witch put her in the cave. The prince is looking for the princess, and he's saying, Princess, where are you? And the nice pirate is gonna help him. The pirate is gonna punch the witch in the face with his strong hands. And the dragon and the prince are gonna fight.
Let go of my princess! Oh, you saved me!
The princess and the prince are gonna be married, and all these people are invited, and the pirate right there is telling, and he's a nice guy. He looks bad, but it's okay.
Yay! I love you! I love you! Yay! They're getting married! Yay! They're getting married! You are now pronounced husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Go!
So, I'm sorry? Oh, The Princess of the Dragon. It's on ToonTube, yeah. We can post it.